Everyone, happy new year. This is the first live stream of the year for me. Thank you all for joining me on this Sunday. I really appreciate it. If there's any stocks or crypto whose charts you want me to run through, drop a comment on this post and I'd be more than happy to run through it on the live stream. So starting off, we're going to go with Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's looking very bullish. I mean, we've got a nice base forming on the OBV. Pretty much it's bottomed out, flattened, and now it's starting to creep a little bit higher. It is breaking out of its downtrend as well. And I've been bullish on Bitcoin pretty much since the 21st November. I was calling for the bottom all this entire week, said that it was coming. And then as we started to creep higher, I saw this breakout happening, and I continued to say that it was going to go higher. I think we are at a point now where we could potentially see a little bit of a pullback, but I think Bitcoin's going to go higher eventually, and it's going to finish the year positive. I don't think we're going to see 4-year cycle bear market that we typically see. We did just break the 50-day SMA, and we retested it yesterday, and we're continuing higher. The big thing now is just making sure we get back above the 2024 close, which is right at 93.5 about. So I'm bullish on Bitcoin for the year. I think lower interest rates are going to help it, and we'll start to see it perform much better over the coming months. Next, I wanted to update on my Sun position. So I started posting about Sun back on Monday, the 22nd. Bought a bunch of shares after market close, and then I bought some more pre-market on Tuesday because I thought it was about to start going on a run. And we did get a nice run, but unfortunately, due to end of year low liquidity and just tax loss harvesting into the end of the year, we saw the price come back down pretty good. Came back down, tested the 50 SMA. Had a few people asking me if I was still in it. Haven't sold a single share. Don't think I will. It's in a sector that I think is going to be really hot in 2026. It's in the space sector. They've got solar panels. They actually have satellites in orbit that are doing all this. And I think a lot of the selling towards the end of last week, particularly leading up to the new year, was because the stock is down. It was down 78% from its all-time highs at the beginning of 2025, and we saw a really nice 63% bounce from those lows. And I think people were just trying to get out tax loss harvest, and that's why we saw a lot of sell pressure going into the last day sell pressure was Tuesday, which was the last day that people could tax loss harvest for 2025. And it's been up ever since. We did have a little bit of a pullback on Friday before finishing the day higher, but I think that's just because there was low volume. Volume should return to the markets this week, and I think Sun's in a good spot. It's in a good sector. Nothing for me to really worry about right now. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Sun. I think space is going to do really well this year. Let's go to SPY. So SPY again, just end of year sell pressure. We came back and held this trend line that we've been forming over the past month of the market. I am inclined to believe that we're going to go higher from here. I think a lot of the apprehension in the markets has come from people not really sure what was going to happen with Venezuela. Didn't really know how much of a conflict it was going to turn out to be. But given how swift and how quick it ended, I think the markets are going to react favorably to that. Oil prices are probably going to go down once futures open tonight. But I think the market's going to rally off this news. We got in, got Maduro out, didn't lose a soldier, and um, I think market's going to like it. Now, if there's going to be a longer conflict, then maybe we start to see some negative aspects of that. But I don't see any actual conflict with Venezuela lasting very long. Our military is far superior to theirs. The only way it would be impactful is if like China or Russia got involved, but I don't see that happening either. China's got their own economic problems, and Russia does not have the capability to get into another war while Ukraine's going on. And even after that war ends, which I expect to end this year, they still aren't in a position to get into a war, especially with a country like the U.S. So I don't expect any conflict with Venezuela to last long. Hopeful that the capturing of Maduro is basically the end of it. So yeah, I think markets are going to react favorably. All right, so let's go to IWM. Yeah, I called on the last live stream that we did. I was calling for potentially seeing 245.57. We bounced right off the 50 SMA, which is just above that 245.57, and got a good bounce off of it. Came back down, tested it again, and finished the day higher. So I think IWM still looks really good. I don't really think there's going to be as much downside from here. I think, bear case, I think we see 237.56 before we go higher, but I'm inclined to believe that we go higher from here, especially because we bounced off the lows on the OBV. So I think we go higher from here. Absolute worst case scenario. I don't think we lose 230. This bottom right here was super strong. Friday, November 21st was the highest traded day in IWM history, with the only other day seeing more shares traded was the bottom back in April, on the 9th of April. And that was the bottom. I do not see this bottom being lost, especially after such a strong volume day. So next we will go into the VIX volatility index. Again, we are trading below all sorts of lows. It does look like we're kind of getting to an area where we could potentially start breaking out of here. Yeah, so we've already broken out of here, but I really don't see anything consequential happening here. I think the VIX is going to stay low for an extended period. Volatility will be back in full force at some point this year. We have the midterms in November, and midterms always bring some sort of volatility. So I would definitely expect to see that. When that spikes, we'll see an inverse reaction in the markets, and we typically see an 18 to 20% decline in the indices when there's a midterm in that year. But I think everything that happens this year in the markets is going to be positioning for 2027. I think 2027 is going to be an excellent year in the market. And I highlighted why I believe that in my article that I posted on the 2nd with my outlook for 2026. So if you haven't read that, I definitely recommend giving it a read. All right. So let's get into my scanners. So we've got 2 scanners to go through today. We've got my daily scanner and my weekly scanner. The daily scanner has 33 stocks on it that we're going to go through. And my weekly scanner has 5 stocks on it, but I think 2 of them might be, no, just one of them. Yeah, one of them is also on the daily scanner, so we won't go through that one twice. All right. So first one is BXMT, Blackstone Mortgage Trust. Um, this one had a pretty big price decline. OBV is okay. Not really a setup on this one that I like. So let's just check the weekly. And it does seem to be basing on the weekly. Just not a setup that I particularly like. So we'll go to the next one. We got Sunrun. Sunrun, I think looks decent. I mean, it had a pretty big run up in price from the lows. Going 310% from the lows, and now we're got a good base on the OBV. And if you actually go to the weekly, it's actually forming a pretty large cup and handle. It deviated from the lows, reclaimed the lows back above the 50 SMA on weekly, and now we're forming a nice handle here. The OBV looks good on the weekly. I think the OBV looks better on the weekly than it does the daily. So yeah, I think that's looking really good. This color changed. So yeah, I think Sunrun looks really good. Levels to watch. Um, you can either get in now or wait for the break of 2134. You can take profit 3312. Another area to take profit at 40 bucks. You can also take profit at 60, and then all the way up to these levels up here, like 82, and the all-time high at $100. So I think those are the levels to watch. This is a solar tech company, and I think we're going to start to see solar perform very well. Energy is going to be an important topic in 2026 and beyond, because the AI revolution is here. It's here to stay, and we need energy to power it. So I think Sunrun is a good one to hold for long term, and I think the chart's looking really nice. It could even potentially form an even bigger cup and handle out of this cup and handle that it's in right now. So yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. On the daily, let's see if we can find other places to get an entry. Yeah, you could get an entry at 1840. And then, if you want to do another entry, you could do 1689, and then you're going to be out below 15. Get a little bit more breathing room. 1570 is where you'd be out. So yeah, I think Sunrun's looking really good. So next we've got STWD. Not really a setup on this one I like. So we'll go to CVE, Synovus Energy. Again, not anything I particularly like here. OBV looks pretty strong, has a pretty nice base. Let's just take a look at the weekly. Yeah. What's its dividend rate? 0.145. What is that? How often it looks like it's a quarterly dividend. Yeah. And it's about a 3% dividend, so not the most spectacular dividend. I think there's other energy companies with better dividends that I think are positioned better. But again, it's in a sector I think is going to do well. So if you wanted to hold this one, I would look at it more as a long-term investment instead of a short-term investment. But next we'll go to Dave and Buster's Play is the ticker. Not much of a setup on this one that I like. So we'll go to the next one. You. Energy Fuels Inc. I'm bullish on uranium. I think uranium and alternative energies are going to do better than oil. We did get a break of the 50 SMA. OBV has held pretty strong despite the decline in price. So I think Energy Fuels looks really good. There's actually a few other uranium stocks that are going to be on this screener today that we'll go through, but I'm bullish on uranium. Uranium spot futures did have a breakout on Friday, and I think uranium is going to do very well in 2026. Again, this is a stock that if I was to get into, I'd probably look at it more as a long-term investment than me trying to day trade it. But I think UU is definitely good for a long-term hold. But I won't go into its technicals just because I view this as a long-term hold. Next, we got Pony AI. So this one is at an interesting spot. OBV has basically held this 56 million floor for a long time. OBV, let's do a quick. Let's do this real quick. So it is breaking out of this downtrend, and the OBV, it did break out of this downtrend, retested it, and now it's looks like it's trying to get back above this resistance area. So if it has another green day on Monday, I think that would be a very good spot to get into Pony. You could definitely buy this breakout, get another entry at 1430. You could do another one at 1266, but your stop loss is going to be under 1048. So you definitely have to size this appropriately. Just because if you don't, you'll be down 35%. So definitely make sure you don't go in with more than you're willing to lose on this one. But I think it's a solid setup. You've got profit. You can take 21, 29, which is perfect because there is a gap to fill right here. So there's a gap to fill right there. Good place to take profit. And then its all-time highs are right here. Put another box right here on this one. But yeah, that's basically all-time highs right there. And those are my areas I'd take profit, and then you can just let the rest ride. But yeah, I think Pony looks solid. Next, we've got Trinity Capital. Not a setup on this that I like. So we'll go to EFC, Ellington Financial. Not a setup. I think this one can perform well in the long term. It's got a really strong dividend. Its 200-day EMA is looking to get above the 200-week EMA. So if I think that crossover happens, that would be very bullish for the price. But I don't think on a short term there's anything I would want to take kind of moves like molasses. So I'd focus on this one long term and collect the dividend because it's got a really nice dividend. Next, we've got UEC, Uranium Energy Corp. So this is a stock that I have in my long-term portfolio, and I actually have a bunch of shares of this in my retirement account. I'm super bullish on uranium. It is breaking out of its downtrend. OBV has basically been holding these levels throughout the entire pullback. The one thing that I do like about UEC though is they don't sell their uranium as they mine it. They will actually kind of game it, um, depending on the markets. If they think that spot uranium is going to increase in price, they'll hold and stop selling, which they did through the end of last year. So that impacted their short-term numbers and financials. But I think uranium is going to start ripping again at some point this year, and their strategy will definitely pay off. So I'm bullish on UEC. I think this is my favorite play out of all the uranium companies, and I do think that there's also an outside chance that Trump comes in and partners with some of these uranium companies. He's done partnerships with some critical minerals companies, and I think uranium is just as important, just because we need it to create nuclear energy, and nuclear energy is one of the best ways that we can, scale energy in the United States rather quickly. So I'm bullish on UEC. Not really a short-term trade for me. This is a long-term hold. So yeah, we will go on to the next one. BYDDY, which is bid. So this is like the Chinese Tesla. I think this is, if you're getting an entry here, you're basically bottom hunting. OBV is starting to show signs of life. Chart's kind of all over the place, so I don't particularly love that, but that's just how these ADRs go sometimes. So entry, you could get an entry here. You could get another entry at 12:35. Let's get the close 12:30, and then your stop loss is going to be below 1181. So this one's a little bit of a tighter trade. You can go a little bit heavier into this. You'd be losing about 7% if your stop loss is hit. But it looks decent. The OBV is breaking out. Well, depending on how you draw it, it's already broken out. So yeah, I don't think it's in a bad spot. I think you definitely take a trade on this. Just check a couple things first. Yeah. BYD doesn't look bad. I'm just not a big fan of trading Chinese stocks, but the technicals appear to be there on this one. So next we've got SERV Robotics. So this is an interesting stock. I actually, for those of you that are watching, thanks for watching, especially, 25 minutes in. But this is a stock that I actually am going to be including on my buys for 2026 tomorrow. The chart's looking great. It's been in a massive uptrend basically since it was IPO'd, and this one was actually spun out of Postmates, which Uber acquired. So SERV Robotics is actually partnered with Uber. They have sidewalk robots, and they basically go to these stores, pick up food delivery, and bring it to people's doors. They're in limited markets right now. It's like LA, Dallas, Fort Worth area, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, DC, and a few other metro areas. But as they expand, I think they'll continue to do better. They'll be able to leverage that partnership with Uber. Uber's market share of the food delivery industry is only 23% of the market. The biggest company that has market share in this industry is Grubhub. no, DoorDash. And DoorDash has 67% market share, and they actually partnered with SERV Robotics in at the end of 2025. Right now, they're only providing robots for DoorDash in Los Angeles. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity for them to expand with DoorDash, especially considering the market share. And the robots do have the ability to switch between Uber and DoorDash depending on where their services are needed. So that's going to be important. And OBV's, as I said, it's been in an uptrend ever since it IPO'd. And it looks like it's gearing to try to make a breakout of its all-time highs. So I think SERV Robotics looks really good, and it's going to be on my list that I release tomorrow morning. So next we've got TAL Education Group. Talked about this one before. Not really a setup I love on this, so we will go to next, WB Weibo Corp. Again, not really a setup on this one I like either. Next we've got GPRE, Green Plains. Yeah, I don't mind this one. I've actually been in this stock before. It broke out of this range, got above the 50 SMA. OBV's been, it's held up pretty well. Looks like it might be looking to start reversing here soon. It's been consolidating for a while. Volume's been dying off, so I wouldn't get too greedy on this trade. Basically, I do one entry, and then my stop loss is going to would be at 940, and then I would look to just take profits. Probably around 1187. Not a super exciting trade, but it looks doable. You get about 15%, and never going to complain with making 15% on a trade. So yeah, that's my thought on GPRE. Not a superb setup, but not a bad one either. So next we've got ProPetro Holding Corp. This one I actually was looking at back in October, never pulled the trigger on it, and had a huge run up in price. Let me take a look at something. I want to see if this is a Venezuela oil play. I can't remember. So give me 1 second and I will double check. Um, no, they're not in Venezuela. They are in the Permian Basin of Texas. But yeah, this price, I mean, I don't know if I would get into this here just because it is already up so much, and there are gaps below that it needs to fill. 293. Yeah, revenue is whatever, down actually quarter over quarter from Q2. So, don't particularly love that, but I think it's okay. Next is MFA Financial. Financials kind of got clobbered across the board last week. I think this will do all right, but there isn't a big setup on this one that I like, so we will go to WRD. We ride. Yeah. Nothing really particular about this one that I like. If you want to get in this one, I wouldn't get greedy on it. either. You could take entry here, get another entry at 846, and then take a stop loss below 823. But from here you're looking at an upside of 31% to these local highs, and you're looking at a downside of about 12%. Um, you know, I don't think it's particularly my favorite setup. OBV has at least been grinding higher, but no, not my favorite setup. So we'll go to the next one. RCAT Red Cat Holdings. So this is also in the space slash satellite slash drone sector. So I'm going to be bullish on this one. It's it formed a nice base. Now it's starting to push higher. It is breaking out of this downtrend. So I do think we start to push higher from here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see it do something like this. Comes up, hits here, comes back down, and then we see a breakout. Wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that, just because there is resistance. And typically, once these things start breaking out, they don't break out in one shot. So I think we'll see a pullback. We'll come back down to this trend line. But if you wanted to take a trade to 1270, you could go for it. And then get back in once it retests these lows. So I'm going to set a few alerts on this one, so I don't lose track of it. Alert crossing up. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think you can take a trade. I think it probably goes to 1270. You'll lock in 40% gains from here, and then we'll see a pullback. You could probably get a pullback. I'd probably aim for a re-entry around $10, and then get a second entry as we get closer to here. But I definitely think this is a stock you could trade. So yeah, that's Red Cat. Next, we've got SHLS Shoals Technology. Yeah, this one's not a bad setup either. This one's been on and off of my screeners, and I think it's finally in a better spot. Um, you know, we saw it on this day that it ripped, and it got rejected the next day. Typically once you see this consolidation, as I mentioned on RCAT, I don't really like to buy this first pump attempted breakout, just because it usually gets rejected and then it'll pull back. And now we're at a point where it has pulled back. It's retested this resistance a few times, and now it's starting to break out. This level right here has held pretty well. So yeah, I think Shoals is looking a lot better than it has previously. OBV's been holding this base pretty well. And let's just check this downtrend on the OBV, see if we're starting to get a breakout. Not quite there on the breaking out on the OBV, but it's right there. It could break out Monday if we do get the confirmation. And I think you could take profit at these local highs right here at 1136, and then there's going to be a lot of profit to take on the way up. I wouldn't take profit at $12. Take profit at 1728. Yep, that's a good area. Yeah, $23 is another good area. 27.21. 31.50, and then we've also got 37.61, and the all-time highs at $44. It's been basing pretty long. It's basically been forming a cup and handle. It's forming a cup and handle right now. So uh, definitely think this one has potential. You could also, if you want to be a little bit more conservative with your take profit, you could take profit at the 200-week EMA, which is right here at about $14. Entries, I probably, you know, very likely wouldn't have another entry at 843 unless it rejects and comes back down before this Friday. So you're likely only going to get one entry on this. Don't think we would get a second entry, but I think this one's looking solid. Definitely an entry, a stock that I would want to day trade. So I will add this one to my watch list for tomorrow. All right, so next we got VET, Vermilion Energy. Yeah, it's not a setup on this one that I particularly like, so I'll go to the next one, ITUB, Ital Unibanco Holdings. Now, is this a Brazilian fintech stock? Let me just double check. 19. Yeah, so this is a Brazilian fintech. It actually looks pretty solid. Let's just compare it to new for a second. Yeah, I mean, it looks solid. I mean, I'm bullish on the banking sector in Latin America. I think there's a lot going on there that's going to be helping out the citizens try to fight inflation. OBV was pretty steady through this downturn between December of 2023 and December of 2024, and now it's just been grinding higher ever since. If I was to buy this, I would look at this one more as a long-term hold. I would, get an entry and then find spots to average down. But I wouldn't try to day trade this. It's up a good amount already. So there's definitely potential for a pullback, but I think long term, iTub, PAGs, and NU, I think they're all going to do pretty well. So next we'll go to TMC, the metals company. Yeah, it's okay. OBVE is in an uptrend, even from right here. So that's good. Yeah, just not really any entry on this one that I would want to take. I definitely want it to break out of these levels first. So it's definitely got a little bit to go before I think it's actually ready. But yeah. So I'll go on to the next one. DIDIY, Diddy Global. DIDIY, Diddy Global. Wouldn't it be ironic if this was an oil company? Let's take a look. DIDI. It's a looks like it's a vehicle company. Yeah, not quite ready yet on the chart. I would prefer it to have a breakout of this before I got in. Um, you know, yeah, I think it's just got a little bit more work to do on the chart. I'll add an alert on this. Promising up message. DIT live breaking out. So I'll keep an eye on this. Just not quite at a spot where I'd want to get in just yet, especially because OBV still needs to straighten out a little bit as well. So we'll go on to the next one. Next one is TMQ Trilogy Metals Inc. Not a setup on this one, but I like. So we'll go to the next one. INV Inventure Inc. Yikes. Bad beat on the earnings. Another bad beat. Another bad beat. Yeah, and it just could just be a new company. People don't really have a gauge on it. I do like how much the OBV is up. OBV is in a nice uptrend from these lows. Um, I'll have to do a little bit more research into INV to see what they've got cooking. But there isn't a short term setup on this that I would take. So we'll go to the next UROY, Uranium Royalty Corp. Again, another uranium company. I actually haven't heard of this one. I don't think that they would be a US uranium company. I think I'm more bullish on US uranium than I am international uranium. But I can look into that to see more what they are. Um, but yeah, just because it isn't a US uranium company, I'm probably out on this one. But it is breaking out. You definitely could take a trade on it. You can even do a short-term trade. I think a second entry on this one would be 345, and then your stop loss at 316. Yeah, that'd be a very good area for a stop loss. I don't think it gets there. I would even be inclined to believe that you don't even see 345. Um, you can get your take profit at 50 at $5, and that'll get you a nice return of 30%. So, I definitely think there's an opportunity to make money in this. Um, Definitely a setup I like. And I would do this one as a short term trade. I think UEC, UUU, and I don't think the other one is on here. That's US. Yeah, it's not. So the other one that's a US based company is URG, but I think URG was on uh, my screener last week. Yeah, it was. Yeah, URG was on my screener last week. We didn't go through stocks after the Wednesday close, so we didn't discuss it. But it was on my screener Wednesday. I like big fan of anything uranium, especially if it's US based. So that's going to be UUUU, UEC, and URG. Those are my top picks for uranium sector. So next we've got TOI, the Oncology Institute. Not a setup I love here. So we'll go to the next one, ABSI, ABC Corporation. Nothing I love here either. So we'll go to HUYA. Nothing I like here. So we'll go to the next, DNN, Denison Mine. So this is another uranium miner. This one's based out of Canada. They do have operations in the US. I'd say after the three US uranium companies, this is probably my next favorite. I think DNN is a close second to US uranium companies, but I I would take this one as a short term trade. I made money on this one. I think I took calls on this one back in August, and I rode it most of the way up. So already made some good profits on it. But yeah, really nice breakout. Really strong day, 14% on Friday. And very clean break of this downtrend as well. Yeah. Yeah, that's what you want to see. You want to see good volume come in, you clear your SMAs, and you get a breakout of you get a breakout of the downtrend. So I think that's very bullish. You could get a second entry at these highs, 286. And honestly, I would probably just put my stop loss. Uh, I would put my stop loss at 248. You can get a second, you can get a third entry at 262 if you wanted to get another one, and then a close below 248. But I think DNN looks good. OBV is super strong. I mean, super strong. So yeah, I think DNN good company to take a long position in. Next, we've got EU Encore Energy Corp. Um, I think this is another good setup. Is this uranium as well? In Encore Energy. All right, so they are a U.S. focused uranium producer, and they operate multiple uranium extraction facilities in Texas using in situ recovery technology. So, yeah, you can add this to the list of U.S. uranium miners. Nice little breakout as well. Yeah, this one looks real solid. OBV super strong. Uh, really nice uptrend even on this pullback. I mean, that is just yeah, that's a pretty solid bullish divergence we've got there. And it looks like it kind of wants to make a run for these local highs. So I think Encore Energy again. I won't chart this one super detailed because I view this more as a long term. But if you wanted to get aggressive, 233 would be your second entry, and your stop would be below. We'll call it $2. Stop below $2. So yeah, this one looks super good. This will be on my watch list tomorrow. But yeah, this looks very nice. Next, we've got prop, which is so this is gonna be the last one on this daily screener. This one looks kind of interesting. Wonder what I'll have to look into what they do. But OBV's been trending up a little bit. It's been holding this area of support. So we at least have a support that we can monitor. It is breaking out of this downtrend right here. So yeah, I think you could take a swing at this one. I would only basically do one entry on this and just put a stop below 165. You could take profit at 225, more profit at 275, 263, 422. Yeah, this one just has a lot of resistance to get through. 491. But it doesn't look horrible by any means. You could play this one conservative and just get out at 225, which is going to be a solid 20% gain. So I think it's solid. I would probably just play this one to 225 and get out. So Prairie Operating Co. looks like a good setup. But I'll look into it more and see what it's got cooking under the hood. So we will move over to the 50 SMA. If there's any stocks you guys want me to go through, I will go through them at the end. It looks like we have a request for REMX, so I will go through that one at the end. We should get to it pretty quick, just because there's only 4 stocks on this that we need to cover. So we'll get to that one soon. If there's any other requests, drop a comment. So first we've got USAR. And because we're looking at this on the weekly, I will be switching over to the weekly. Yeah, weekly chart doesn't look as great, but I do like the daily. The daily setup is looking nice. Um, let's see here. So we've got a breakout of that downtrend. Let's move this up here. Yeah, and it basically rode this downtrend all the way down to the lows, and now it's bouncing. Um, so I like that. OBV has been stabilizing. We do have a bullish divergence right here to here, and right there to there. So got a bullish divergence on the daily. I do like that a lot. And yeah, that's another one to keep an eye on for tomorrow. Um, you could take profit. Let's see, at you could take one entry here and get out at 1890, and you're making 33% from here. So I think this one looks solid, especially for a short term. And if we start breaking out of this range that it's basically been traded in since the beginning of time, then we can start looking at prices above. We've got a gap to fill right here. We've got another gap to fill right here. So definitely a lot of places to take profit on the way up. They're much more spread apart than other stocks that we've gone through today. But I do really like this bullish divergence. I think that's very indicative of a move higher, especially if we start clearing all these EMAs and SMAs that are bunched together right here. So USAR looking very good. If we push all-time highs, 200% from here. And even with taking profit 33%, that's still going to be a very happy day for a lot of people. So USAR looking very nice. So next one on the list is SERV. We already talked about SERV. Next is CLSK. So this is in another sector that's pretty hot. It is breaking out. Not quite yet. So let's wait for it to cross up. So once it crosses out is where I would want to get in this. OBV does also look like it wants to start breaking out off of the lows. There's a little bit of a divergence, not a super strong one. Basically, OBV stayed flat here and price went higher. So minor daily OBV, not a super strong one, but I do think CLSK looks good, and I think it's going to perform well with the other AI infrastructure plays. Take profit levels at 1550. More take profit levels at 2050, and then I believe this is all-time high. No, okay, yeah, 2360 is another take profit area, and then above those levels, there's not as much spots to take profit. $31.42. 79.50, and then 150. So yeah, those are the levels that take profit. But I think this one's starting to look good, especially if we get a break on the OBV and the daily chart price. So Clean Smart looks really good. Next, we've got TIGR up FinTech. So this one's been on and off of my screeners for a while. Did break out of this downtrend that I put up previously. So this would have been on previous weekly charts. But yeah, I think it looks decent breaking out of OBV. I would probably at this point, I would prefer to wait for this gap to get filled, which would basically bring it right back down to the 50 SMA. So that's where I would look for my re-entry. Let's add an alert on the 50 SMA. You want it crossing down once per bar. That's fine. TIGR. Testing support. So this is I believe it's a Chinese brokerage company. So yeah, I think this chart is super strong. It's basically been in an uptrend since September of 2024. So yeah, I think this looks really good and it looks like it's ready to go on a run. But personally, I would wait for a pullback. Yeah. Last one on my list, and then I'll get to any requests, is PTEN. This one I think looks really good as well. It is breaking out of this downtrend right here. And we have really strong OBV. It has basically skyrocketed from the lows in September, and we are back above a lot of areas of resistance. So I think P10 looks really solid. It's got a gap to fill all the way up here. So even if it fills the gap, it's 30% from here. So I think P10 looks really good. Finally breaking out of resistance. Hopefully it stays broken out of resistance this time. It's been rejected a couple times, but I think it's looking super strong. You can take your profit. I mean, this is such a big area that if you ride this and take profit, you could probably just ride the rest of your shares after that and just put a stop loss. You probably just put a stop loss at 697 or $7. That way, even if it does come back down, you get out of the rest of your position in profit. So I think P10 looks solid. All right, so let's just take a look at Twitter. Make sure I didn't get any other requests. So 1 second. All right. All right, so I got quite a few. So let's go through them. 1 second. Just getting all these written down real quick. Let's see. All right. So the first request that we have is REMX. This is coming from Did It for the Crypt. Thank you very much for your request. All right. So this is going to be Van Eck Rare Earth and Strategic Metals. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be bullish on this one just because of it's rare earths. I think rare earths are going to do very well this year. OBV in a well-defined uptrend. It looks like it is pushing for its all-time high on the OBV. I think this is a good one to average into. It's going to be a safer bet in this industry. So if you want safety and you don't want to pick between specific companies and feel bad about picking the wrong horse, this is going to be the pick for you. there's definitely nothing wrong with that. Preserving capital is the name of the game in this space. So, definitely nothing wrong with coming into an ETF like this. But I view as long-term hold. Price has been very nice uptrend. It's been holding support. And it looks like it wants to break out of these levels. I definitely think that you could definitely get an entry here, but then watch for a break above 81.71. And then it's got, a bunch of chop to get through over here, especially over here. Once you get to it's some of its early days of trading, but I think it looks really good. I mean, I think if you clear these levels of 125, you're in a good spot. And I definitely think it would start making a push towards all-time highs. This is it's gonna take time to get there. It'll move a little bit slower than your individual companies would, but again, preservation is the name of the game when it comes to trading. So I imagine it would get there someday. But yeah, you definitely look at 125 in the near to midterm, which would still be close to 80% gain. So I think this one looks solid. Definitely a good one to have as a long-term hold. So did it for the crypt. Thank you very much. The next request we got was TSLA from Hackham. So thank you for the comment as well. Really appreciate it. Tesla, obviously has some turbulence here. Broke below the 50 SMA, so there's potential for some downside here. Let's check this real quick. So I would say the downside's probably limited. I would expect Tesla to hold this support. They've just got a lot going on. I don't even view Tesla as an automotive company. They are AI, robotics, and other tech, in my opinion. So I'm not as worried about the cyclical nature of automotive sales. But yeah, I would want this support area to hold. I wouldn't want that to be lost. So, if it were to nuke straight down tomorrow, you'd be looking at a low of about 417. But I like Tesla long term. I definitely would want to add that. Another good area to add would be 365 if it even gets there. And 294. So, it's got a ways down it could go. Do I think it'll get that low? No. OBV's been in a really solid uptrend. And we could even see a bounce right here tomorrow. So we could see this come back up. Maybe it chops back to the support area. But I think Tesla is a long-term hold, and they're going to do well in 2026. So I actually almost put them on my long-term hold list for 2026, but I ended up cutting them from the list just because I went with a smaller list than I had wanted. But if I had expanded the list, it would have been on there. But I think Tesla's going to do well. And then the last one is PLRZ from Hunter Allen. Hunter, thank you very much for your comment. I really appreciate the interaction. Let's take a look here. So this is an interesting company. This is an interesting stock. We did come back down and fill this gap. And now it looks like it's probably, I would imagine it's going to be range bound in this gap for a little bit. I would look to add on retests of the low. I wouldn't want the 50 SMA level to be lost. I think if we saw a close below 639 is where I'd want to get out. Personally, I wouldn't add here just because it's up so much on the day from Friday at a 50% day. But where I would want to add is I would either add retest to the lows or a breakout of the high of this gap that it needed to fill. So that's how I would trade this one. It looks like it's kind of just going to be range bound in this gap. OBV has been pretty flat. It's been holding its range lows there as well. So definitely an interesting stock. I definitely am going to look into this one just to see what they're doing. But that's how I would trade this one. I wouldn't buy here. I'd wait for a pullback to the lows or a breakout of this gap. So again, did it for the crypt, Hackham and Hunter Allen. Thank you so much for the comments. Really appreciate you guys requesting those stocks. And if anyone has any other stocks that they'd like for me to go through, drop a comment and I will go through them tomorrow on live stream. But for now, I will see you guys all tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday and have a good weekend and Happy New Year. Thanks, guys.